I'm Chris Arpin with Createx Colors, and I'm going to show you some simple taping and masking techniques and also a positive-negative design that incorporates this pretty cool wavy, energized checkerboard effect that I learned from Pete Finland. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we're back. Our silver sealer is dry. I mixed up a little bit of my coarse aluminum, so that's the next color that I'm going to use in laying out. That's going to be my ground coat for all my graphics. So on this project we're going to do kind of an industrial look, I think I mentioned. So we're going to use our charcoal viola, we're going to use our coarse aluminum, and then we're going to tint some of those colors just to get a few different gradations of gray and black to do some shading. So for this I'm going to use my LVWBX spray gun. This is a 1.4, so it's perfect for the sealers. I'll go to a 1.3 when I'm spraying my base. And I'm going to use my LPH 80. So everything is right around the air pressure that they recommend. It's right around 20 psi the way I'm going to spray this. So I mix my coarse aluminum actually 3 to 1, 3 parts coarse aluminum to 1 part of our UVLS 4050. We've mentioned that a couple times, I think, in other videos, and we find that for larger gun applications, for broader surfaces, the 4050 just holds the metallic in suspension that much better. You really get a nice even effect without a lot of shifting or modeling, or the tendency that the aluminum has to stand up. So the 4050 is what we're using for this. It's what we recommend as of late for larger spray gun applications. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 coat down. I'm only going to do the sides and the tops of the doors. I'm not going to worry about the bottom or the edges because that's going to be a different color. You guys will see that. So there's no reason to put more material down than I need to. So I'm just doing the flats right now. So this is 1 coat. It should be perfectly covered with 1 coat over this silver sealer. Hey guys, we're back in the booth, and I actually wanted to take a moment. We're not done taping this out yet, but actually touch on something that we just learned actually while we were taping this out. This is the first time that I used the 3M poly, the purple poly tape, and I just talked about saying that I was going to try on this project. And I think I still am, but I'm not going to use it for the window frame portion of this because the 1/8 inch, I don't know if you can see that on camera, the 1/8 inch could not really make and keep this radius for a nice little tight radius that I wanted to have. Now you guys can see this is kind of what I had in mind in terms of taping this out. So it's going to be, this line is going to stay silver. I'm going to do another line that's going to be black, and then we're going to have silver in the middle. But I am not happy at all with the paint separation in the corners. It's actually starting to roll up a little bit. So we're going to scrap that idea for this, just for this stripe, and we're going to go back to the FBS Pro Band. And I'm going to use that. This is the blue, which is, I think, 1 step away from the softest. The softest is the red, and the blue is a little bit firmer. So this I know will work really good. I've used it before. So I'm going to redo this and move on to the next. So we'll see you guys in a minute. Okay guys, we're back. I finished retaping that out. Now you can see I used the purple tape, which is actually perfect to show the contrast of what I'm talking about. So I went ahead and I basically did the exact same thing with my 1/8 inch purple to border all the lines here, because what I'm going to do now is go back in with the blue and make another tape line. Okay guys, I'm just about ready to finish my last little intersection here. You guys can kind of see it's starting to take shape a little bit in terms of the picture frame. So I'm going to get this line cut, clean up my intersection where the two meet, my starting point, my end point. We'll get that cleaned up. But you guys can see now I pull that negative out, the purple. And this is my overlap, this is what I was talking about. So now you can see what the blue tape, this is actually going to stay silver. So this is going to be what we're calling the negative, right? Because the positive is what we're going to spray. So this is actually going to stay silver, and from here in is going to get masked off. So we'll just be, again, that picture frame, that border of charcoal with a little 1/8 inch charcoal stripe going into the silver, and then we're going to do something inside this silver panel. But I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these sections taped out and get this masked off, and we'll see you guys in a little bit, and we'll start spraying. Hey guys, we are back. I am just about finishing my last set of lines. And I don't know if you guys can hear, but actually we have the booth on. The booth is running. I turned the fan on only because it is extremely humid. So a little bit of airflow helps in a big way, especially when we're in a booth environment without the fan going. It's kind of stagnant air, so it just kind of, again, touches on the importance of air movement, even when you're not painting, especially when the humidity is really high. If you're in an environment where you almost create that greenhouse effect, it's going to affect how the tape lays down. It's also going to affect that stickiness of the paint. Okay guys, we're back. I have all my graphics taped out. If you remember, this was open on the inside, and this is going to be my positive mask. So we are not going to put color on the inside. The aluminum is going to be our base for the graphics that we do inside. So I went ahead and used a little bit of auto mask Frisket film, mask paper. So we cover that up. You could use masking paper too if you want, or just tape it out, but I had this handy, and it's a great product because it lays down nice and smooth. So, and it's sticky, so it's not going to fall off while you're trying to spray. So this is all going to stay silver. Where you see the blue tape, that is going to be silver as well. So we'll have an 1/8 inch and a light, nice 1.5 inch border of the charcoal color that we're going to mix up. What I also did was, if you remember in the beginning of the video, I had sprayed aluminum, but I just did it on the faces. So I did on the sides of this container or this box, and I did on the faces of the doors. And I wasn't too concerned with getting the tops or the inside edges because I knew this was going to go darker. So I didn't want to build up material for no reason. So I went ahead and just lightly with a piece of 800 dry, wiped the edges, and I literally just wiped just like that, nice, just to knock off any little imperfections, if there's any dust or whatever's going on, a little bit of overspray, just so I had a nice smooth surface to spray on. And then I tacked that off with a water-based specific tack rag. I recommend the products from Gerson. They make a lot of nice waterborne specific, water-based specific tack rags, and there is a difference between the solvent and water, so we recommend the water ones. So we are pretty much ready to go. I'm going to grab my spray gun, and we are going to start spraying the charcoal viola. Okay guys, we're back. I did a second coat of the charcoal viola over the outside, this picture frame on the cabinet. And it's pretty humid out today, it's pretty nasty, so we let it dry a little bit longer than normal. I said usually we're about an hour before we would move on to our next step. I did 2 hours just to make sure. And that's one thing we always recommend. Depending on conditions, you're better off waiting a little bit longer than trying to rush it. It's going to save you time in the long run. So what we're going to do is untape this, and you guys can see what I was talking about in terms of the positive and negative. Okay guys, we are back. I have everything untaped, and actually went ahead and pulled off the 1/8 inch that I had in the middle here to show you guys a little more in detail. Maybe you guys can understand more of what I was talking about rather than have everything taped up still. So you can see we have our border of our charcoal viola, and then we have a 1/8 inch silver stripe, that's the aluminum that we sprayed, and then there's going to be an 1/8 inch charcoal viola stripe here. And you can see that's bordered right now with my 1/8 inch fine line. So I'm actually going to leave my 1/8 inch on there, because what I'm going to do is actually picture frame this again. I'm going to take 3/4 and I'm going to run it down the length of these pinstripes. And I'm going to keep it nice and tight. And you guys remember I was talking about using crepe tape or masking tape, and for this, again, because this is not critical, this isn't a critical masking step, I'm just using this to get a nice even measurement. It's not super critical, right? Because this is going to actually get pulled off when I'm finished to get sprayed, because actually what's going to happen is this is actually going to get sprayed. What the tape is covering right now is getting sprayed, and I'm going to border this again with my fine line, and then I'm going to do a set of flame licks in here, and then we'll positive mask those flame licks. So the flame licks themselves will stay silver, this color, and then we'll do our kind of fuzzy checker flag in between all that, so that'll actually be the background color. And we're only doing it again with 2 colors. It's going to be actually the aluminum, the coarse aluminum. I'm just going to tint it a little bit with some deep black, some semi-opaque deep black, and that's going to be the ground coat color for that, and it's going to give a really cool look, a really cool effect, and it's not a lot of overspray in terms of creating a tape line, so it's nice for background colors because you're not building up a serious edge. So if you were to go back over with some other kind of graphic, you don't have to fight because you're covering these big drop-off lines. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all window framed again and taped out. I'll get this side done too, and we'll come back and you guys can see what step 2 is going to be. Everything taped up. I got my borders done, and if you notice, I actually do have a couple pieces of tape on each of these panels, and that is going to indicate my center line and a stopping point, because what I want to do is when I do this picture frame, rather than just keep it perfectly symmetrical all the way around like the outside ones are, I actually want to make a little point right here to give it a little bit of character. So what this is doing is allowing me to, this is my stopping point, the very tip of my point on both. So I just measured the center, and this one, because this is the bottom of the cabinet, this is the top, I want the top to be a little bit larger, just to give you a little bit of illusion of depth. So what I wanted to do here was, this is about 2 inches off this top line, and this is about 1.5 inches off the bottom. So now that's going to show exactly where I want that tip to start. So I'm going to start taping. I'm going to use my 1/8 inch again, and I'm going to just roughly land the tape at that point. Go about 1/2 inch, kind of like what I did over here for these corners, 1/2 inch off my center line, and then just nice and easy make this corner. And I'm just going to follow it around this frame, same thing. I'm going to make my own turns the same way I did them before. I'm just trying to mirror image at this point everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and come all the way down against this tape, and I'll continue it around, and I'll make my turn on this side, and then I have a breaking point for my overlap, so then I'll continue on with that turn and come all the way around, and then we'll have a cool little point top and bottom to give it just a little more character. And you'll see that'll actually be more pronounced when we do the graphics later, because that's going to stay solid silver. It'll be nice and bright. So I'm going to keep taping this out and taping this side out, and we'll see you guys in a little bit so you can see what is going to happen after that. Hey guys, welcome back. I am done taping on my border, so now you guys can see what it is that I was talking about with that another 3/4 edge all the way around the inside. So this is going to be positive, this is going to stay silver, and I went ahead and did that little detail, just those little points that I talked about where I measured off, just to give a little added dimension to it. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and actually border this again with 3/4, just on the bottom and the sides to give me a reference point for my flame lick. So my flame lick is going to start right about here, and it's going to work up the panel. So I'm going to set a set of flames on both sides just to kind of mirror image each other. They're not going to be exactly the same, they're just going to kind of be freehand, but it's actually going to end up looking something like what I have down here. I went ahead and did this in between the break. So I have the same idea in terms of the paneling, and this is what I meant with the border. So there's going to be a nice clean 3/4 here. This is actually 1/4 inch on the sides because it's smaller, but I just made it to fit. So this is going to be the same thing I'm going to replicate here, but just on a larger scale. So I am going to show you what it was I was talking about. So this is my 3/4 tape. Again, I'm just going right on my tape line at the bottom, and I'm just going to give me a couple reference points for myself, just right about here. Doesn't have to go all the way up because the flame licks are going to start, but it's just to kind of give us that industrial kind of flow to the rest of this and keep it the same so everything is more linear at the bottom of this. So I'm going to take my fine line. Again, I'm using 1/8 inch fine line, and I'm going to start my first lick right about here. I'm just going to go with something that I think fits the space, and as I bring it down to the bottom here, now I'm going to use that tape to give me that perfect border. Same thing, turn the corner, have a nice sharp corner, and when I get to this point, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm actually going to give myself a little bit of a reveal where that point is. And another thing too, when we're doing something with an X-Acto knife, always grab a fresh blade for each one of your projects, because the last thing you want to do is when you're cutting your masking, the last thing you want to do is have to cut that multiple times if the blade's not sharp. It's really a simple little trick just to make sure that when you make that first cut, you're not cutting down through your tape, because if you're cutting through your tape into the silver especially, you're going to see those cut lines. So you want to be able to have just enough pressure to cut your mask but not cut all the way through your tape, because then you'll see the paint will actually go through it and then you're not going to be happy with the results. So I'm going to finish up here with my point. Just kind of free-handed design. And what it'll do is it'll be the opposite on this side. So this side I have turning this way, and this side I'll have it turning that. But again, it's going to be more freehand than anything else. So I'm going to make this corner, come up here, and once I get to the top here, I'm going to finish off my lick. So then I'll do is I'll start from the inside here and I'll start building my flames. And we'll fill all this in, and I'll do the same thing that I have here. Generally the same. A lot of times you could maybe trace this pattern and pounce it and flip it, but we're just going to do it freehand so it gives a little bit better flow. So I'm going to keep laying it out, and we'll see you guys in a minute. Hey guys, we're back. I finished all my taping and I am ready to start landing my vinyl mask. So again, this is an auto mask, vinyl transfer paper basically. Low tack, it's a little sticky enough that it won't pull up any of the artwork, but it's enough that it'll hold it down once you squeegee it. So you can see I have all my positive taped out on this side. This is exactly the same as this. So I went ahead and laid my mask down, and this is where we're going to do that second set of graphics inside here. So this is what we call the positive, and this is the negative. So the positive is going to stay silver, and the silver is going to be the ground coat for the next set of graphics. So basically all I'm doing is working nice and slow. When I land this, starting at one end, try to keep it nice and clean. Don't push it down right away. Get your edge squared up, and just slowly let it fall. Okay guys, I put my little last piece of vinyl mask on this last edge of the graphic. Doing the same thing, I'm smoothing this down, and I'm ready to start cutting. So we're going to talk about knives. I talked real quick before about knives. I prefer an X-Acto knife instead with a fresh blade. It's always nice. You're going to get a nice clean cut, and the last thing you want to do is be going back over and cutting artwork more than you have to, because then you run the risk of cutting through your tape, and it's just going to cause a lot of problems. So just nice and light pressure. I'm going to start at the center. Always try to stay in the center of your fine line tape, and one nice easy line, almost like you're pinstriping. I'm just going to pull this line all the way around and try not to stop until I get to the last intersection. So what I'm doing is I'm eliminating issues when I pick up my knife. The more times I stop and have to reposition my knife for a cut, the more times you run the risk of having a problem. Like right here, I'm actually going to just turn it. The knife is staying on the paper, and I'm just going to continue on with my cut. So I'm going to get this all cut and weeded, and we'll see you guys in a little bit because we're ready to start spraying some paint. Okay guys, we're back, and everything is back masked and taped. I have my positive and negative all taken care of. And one thing real quick before, I know I said we're almost ready to spray, which we are, but I kind of overstepped one little step. When you guys are pulling off your mask, always go in the direction of, basically in this case, the flames. The tips are going this way. When I pull this off, I'm always pulling it with the tape. This way I don't run the risk of pulling these little points up. So if I pull it back this way, you might have an issue where it'll pull your mask, your vinyl tape right back up off the surface. So try to go against, instead of going against it, go with it, you know. So it just helps being able to hold everything down. You don't want to pull any of that up. So what I have here is a fine line tape. It's Scotch, the 223 plus. 233 plus, I'm sorry. This is going to give you a better tape and paint separation line, where the yellow masking tape that I was using for kind of establishing my borders, all this stuff that wasn't getting painted, that wasn't a critical masking kind of tape. So what I'm going to do is pick a line right here, basically the center, and I'm going to start in my center line and lay a tape line. And what I'm going to do is continue on another piece, and I'm going to border that tape line. Right, so what we're doing is we're creating this pattern that's going to be 3/4 of an inch wide. All right, so I'm going to break that off, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So we're going to do one more. Just keeping it nice and tight, clean line. Okay, so now what we're going to do is this centerpiece, we're going to pull it right out. So imagine these are all across this panel. And so we're going to have one every other. So there's going to be a space, another piece of tape, a space, another piece of tape. So that's going to be our grid. So what we're going to do is spray one color. It's going to be this aluminum, and I'm going to tint it a little bit. And we're going to do a pass. And then we're going to do another pass and another pass. We'll get to that. You guys will see it in a spray. But I'm trying to give you the visual on what it is that we're going to achieve with this. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all taped out. Do the same thing on this panel, do the exact same thing, and have my spacing. And then at that point, we're going to be ready to spray. And this is a really cool effect that you guys are going to see, and it takes a minimal amount of effort, really. It's going to be really fast once we start spraying, and it's really cool. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Hey guys, I have my grid pretty much almost done. I just left the last couple pieces for you guys to see exactly what I was talking about in terms of using the 3/4 for your spacing. So now all I'm doing is pulling every other one out, my negative, and again, I'm going with the direction of the flames. I'm peeling it off this way so I don't run the risk of lifting any of these points back if I pull this way. So just a nice methodical approach to peeling this back is your best bet. Don't try to rip it. So if you see a tape line starting to come up, you can get your blade or pencil and just kind of help force it back down so nothing moves on you. So that's all set. What I did ahead of time is lightly wipe this down just because we had so much tape on and off with a very mild pre-paint wax and grease remover. We recommend a solvent-based pre-paint wax and grease. The one that I use, my preference is SX320. It's a PPG product. It used to be DX330, now it's SX320. It's a mild pre-paint wipe. So using a solvent on water-based paint will not affect the water. If you use a water-based product, which they are out there, it's going to actually soften your base coat, so it's not good. It'd be like taking lacquer thinner to solvent-based paint. So this is all set and ready to go. Just make sure, another thing is make sure that you have all your overlaps. Anywhere where this tape is going over another tape line, make sure those corners are nice and tight. Just extra insurance just to go ahead and press all that down. So I mixed up the same aluminum, this coarse aluminum, as my base coat. I actually just added a little bit of our semi-opaque deep black and just a dot of blue just to get us that warm shade, just to be a gray color. So it'll be a little bit darker than this, and we're going to get ready to spray, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to get this effect. So we're going to move this so you guys can get a better view of it. So we'll see you in a second. Okay guys, we are ready to spray, and what I'm going to do is set my fan. I'm using an LPH 80. I'm going to set my fan so I have about a 2-inch fan pattern. So what I'm going to do is make a 2-inch stripe all the way across, and I'm going to just gauge by eye roughly 2 inches down from that, and I'm going to do another stripe right here. So I have a 2-inch space in between, kind of going the opposite of what I have with my 3/4 tape. So I'll show you what that looks like.
Can we do it one more time?
Yeah.
Is that kind of had in your mouth? You're going to know where it bounce.
It did? Really?
Yep.
Why? Okay.
You're going to cut it in a little bit.
Down here, you're going to see my mouth?
No, you can't see
okay.
it. I just caught it from a corner.
Okay.
On this pair over there.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. Okay guys, we are ready to spray. Okay guys, we're all set and ready to spray. Got my paint and my gun. I'm using for this, I'm using an LPH 80, right around 20 PSI. Got my paint mixed, ready to go. It's the E4 cap. What I'm going to do is I have my gun set up so it's right around a 2-inch fan pattern. So I want just about that much. So I'm going to make a pass all the way across this whole graphic. And then what I'm going to do is, just by eye, go another 2 inches, and then go another 2-inch stripe over that. So I'm basically going to go the opposite of the way the tape is running. And what we'll do is we'll build this grid. And it looks kind of silly now, but once we come back and retape and spray again, you'll see this checkerboard effect start to take place. It's going to look really, really cool. So here we go. We're going to spray this first pass. What I'm going to do is let that dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to go and spray my second pass. What you want to do is have that nice fade. That fade is going to give you that loose, kind of wavy pattern. It's going to be really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on going with another pass. Okay guys, I went ahead and did a second coat of my silver mix, my charcoal, and now you can see where my lines were, and I started untaping and retaping, and this is exactly what we have to do. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you. We're just taking our 3/4 inch again and filling in the space of the tape that we exposed. Okay guys, I'm back. We finished taping these little sections up and making sure our intersections are again all nice and tight. Anywhere where there's a tape overlap, make sure that's nice and tight so you don't get any bleed through. So I have the same color. I have that charcoal color that I made, the aluminum with a little bit of deep black, semi-opaque deep black, and a drop of blue just to darken it up. What I'm going to do now is the exact same thing. I have it set up for a little bit of a 2-inch fan pattern, just like that. And you can see the old overspray, right? So what we're doing is we're going to go in between the overspray now. So basically, if I'm spraying across here, I want this yellow to go away and this little bit of white to go away, because now we're doing the second part of that checker pattern. So if you have a hard time seeing, if you had other masking material, I've done this before where I've had masking paper and I pull the masking paper off and you lose these lines, what you can do is just make a little tick mark, you know, with a pencil or a Stabilo pencil or something like that. This way you kind of have a reference point so you know you want to be between these two. So the idea is to create this checkered pattern. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just go back and spray the inside, go 2 inches across, 2 inches, 2 inches, and work my way down. Okay guys, we're back. Everything is untaped. I got my shadowing done here to outline this, so you guys can really see, I think, just standing up in front of the camera, what we have going on, which is a really, really cool effect. So I am going to put the finishing touches on the flames. I'm going to do just a little bit of drop shadows. So I actually switched to my airbrush. It's an Eclipse CS, and I mixed our transparent purple, our transparent jet black, and our 4004 transparent base. And I mix that 1 to 1 to 1. Very easy, but it's a very nice shadow color, and it flows very nice. It's just maybe a splasher reducer, 4011, just to help flow a little better, but it actually sprays really well right out of the gun. And the reasoning behind the purple and the black is the purple actually helps kind of weaken that black so it's not so intense. You can see how dark this really is, and if you can see the shadows right here, not quite sure if you'll pick it up on camera. It softens that black. It doesn't make it really intense. A lot of times if you do straight black, it looks very fake. So it just helps kind of push the realism a little bit. So I'm going to keep going ahead and do my drop shadows here. Okay guys, we're back. Our drop shadows are all dry. Everything is completely untaped. Now I think you can get the full effect of the graphics and what it was we were trying to achieve, and I think it came out really well. I'm really happy with it, so it's pretty cool. The only thing left to do is top coat it. So for this, I'm going to go with our 4051 UV LS satin clear. I think it's going to really have a cool effect, staying in that industrial theme, and it's going to highlight some of the metallic but not be super bright. So we're going to put a couple coats of clear on that, knock that down with a piece of 800 dry. Once it's all sprayed, we'll be able to knock down our graphic edges, and I'll put 2 more coats on top of that, and that'll totally finish this off. So for more information on spraying our UVLS line of clears, you guys can click the link below. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this tacked off, and I'm going to start clearing. And we'll see you guys when I'm done. Okay guys, we're back, and that about wraps up this project. I did 3 coats, like I mentioned, of our 4051 UVLS satin. I let it dry overnight, and I came in this morning and I did a little bit of sanding with a little bit of 600, some 800 to finish it off. I only used about 4 or 5 pieces of sandpaper to sand this entire cabinet, the sides and the tops, because it does powder up and dry sand so nicely, and that's the key, is dry sand. You don't want to wet sand. And I put 2 more coats over the top of that. And now I have no tape lines, no edges. It's all nice and smooth. It has a really cool satin industrial look, which fits the scheme of what we want to have in our mixing area. So again, I think you guys can appreciate the detail, but the simplicity of something like this. We only really use 2 colors, our aluminum base and our charcoal viola for the outline of the cabinet, and we just tinted it with a little bit of black. So really not a lot of color per se, but there's a lot going on, but it's very cool and simple and clean. So again, I think that this basket weave, wavy checkered flag, it has that nervous energy to it. Again, I picked that up, I mentioned, from seeing Pete Finland do something like this. And I think it works extremely well for background graphics. It's a very easy technique, but it looks a little more crazy in terms of the difficulty, when you're actually applying it. So I hope you guys dig this, and we're gonna put this up on the wall and back into use, and we will see you guys next time.